Given the rapturous applause that has greeted the release of Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman movie, one could be forgiven for thinking that we're witnessing some defining moment in the comic book genre that will somehow stave off the inevitable twilight that is now facing its golden age. But let's be clear, the first dedicated cinematic outing for Diana Prince isn't going to topple the likes of Nolan's Dark Knight or Raimi's Spider-Man. Hell, it's not even the best comic book movie this year. What Wonder Woman is, though, is the chance to fill an abscess that has persisted for far too long in comic book films, and likewise it could change the fortunes of its cinematic universe, which had become so toxic it was in danger of poisoning its entire genre.
What the hell is this thing?
The lasso of Hestia compels you to reveal the truth.
But it's really hot.
I have neither the time or the energy to list the myriad of issues that have engulfed the DC Extended Universe up to this point, but that Wonder Woman marks a huge improvement by being merely an act of competent filmmaking that has a coherent plot and characters funneled into a story with a beginning, middle and end pretty much says it all. Much like Britain in 2016, many viewers were contemplating leaving this particular EU after Dawn of Justice and Suicide Squad had left Warner Brothers looking like some monkeys squabbling around the Marvel monolith. And while Wonder Woman isn't quite that eureka moment of a bone being flung into space that the studio needs to truly make this project worthwhile, Patty Jenkins' take on the Amazonian princess at least shows that the DCEU can grasp the basics by producing a film that's both akin to and on par with Marvel's first phase output. Indeed, Wonder Woman is essentially the first Captain America and Thor movies blended into one. Diana is mythical royalty full of hubris and enthusiasm in a land of women who all speak like they belong in Skyrim, and is very reminiscent of a certain Asgardian prince. After that, she's thrust into the real world and finds herself in Steve Rogers' first adventure, battling an evil force in the midst of a world war. This is all rounded off with the inevitable showdown between two gods fighting over whether humans are worth saving or not, which is a dilemma that probably needed to be spread out further along the film's ample running time rather than just being confined to 5 minutes of chucking tanks at each other. But it all works well enough. And despite Wonder Woman taking very few risks with the traditional superhero format, there's a degree of freshness here that can only really be attributed to one factor. In almost every sense, Wonder Woman is a fish-out-of-water story. Firstly, her primitive black and white morality clashes with the complexities of espionage during a world conflict, and then her being a superhuman woman in the unquestionably sexist world of the early 20th century obviously causes many a chauvinist prejudice to be shattered. But even the film itself has an odd one out quality, as it presents us with the oddity of a female protagonist in what has been a completely male-led genre up until now. It has been over a decade since this feature-length streak of excrement gave us a female-led comic book movie, and subsequently Marvel have only proffered the idea of a Black Widow or Captain Marvel adaptation and have still yet to follow through on either. So it's kind of ironic that the most testosterone-fueled stable of the comic book genre has finally allowed someone with only X chromosomes to take the lead. But it's not just the presence of a female hero that feels so refreshing here, it's also that the film always pulls back from truly labouring the point of what a novelty this is. When Chris Pine, Stephen Trevor tells Diana that she can't help civilians behind enemy lines because it means crossing no man's land, eyes will be rolling in anticipation for the inevitable "I'm no man" retort, but it never comes. Instead, she just does what she feels she needs to do, and others follow her lead, and it just goes to show that empowerment is most effective when it's done quietly. It probably helps that there's a female presence behind the lens as well, and Patty Jenkins' direction is the best we've seen in a comic book movie for some time. Further praise is due to the Oscar-nominated director thanks to her actually getting a functional performance out of Gal Gadot in the lead, which may not have been such a simple task.
Is there anything else you want to show me?
There can be little argument that Gadot can certainly handle herself, and she brings a radiant presence to the role of Diana Prince, but other than the physical demands of her performance, she doesn't offer much beyond her striking appearance and ass-kicking. While she may have the face of a goddess, all that the Israeli actress seems capable of doing with her gorgeous visage is to furrow her brow when required. Conveniently, it turns out that Diana's expressions only have to range from quizzical bemusement, fierce determination and stern disapproval, so a slightly creased forehead pretty much covers those. Whether this is due to the actress's limitations is debatable, and there may be nothing wrong with such a reductive performance, since plenty of boys have made a respectable living out of being able to punch people on screen far better than they are able to relate to those watching them. But it does go to show once again that the DCEU is far more comfortable in portraying its characters as physical icons rather than as personalities, and they look a long way off from the more nuanced character interactions we've seen in other comic book movies. This still causes me misgivings that the Justice League is just going to be one big recruitment drive interspersed with punch-ups, and will have little in the way of the quieter character moments we've come to see and love in the Avengers. However, this significant upswing in form from the DCEU does at least hand the imminent team-up movie a lifeline. Wonder Woman isn't a great film by any means, but it is a good one, and while its legacy may be determined more by what follows it, we do finally get some unfettered enjoyment out of a DC character here. Perhaps more importantly though, Wonder Woman represents progress not only for the DCEU but also for the genre itself, and more of its kind would be extremely welcome in both. For more reviews and views like these, be sure to visit heroindex.net and of course, hit the like and subscribe.